Illini football in the college football playoff? The experts seem to think so.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. My name is Sonny Verma, your host here at Locked On Illini, where I continue to provide you coverage daily. That's right, every single day of the orange and blue. Everything is absolutely free here. Only thing I ask for in return is if you can make sure you hit that like button. Look, it's the offseason technically, although we're getting closer to college football season. I feel like it's right around the corner, but I continue to want to come up with stories to keep you guys in the loop with Illini content, and it helps to know that you're watching. And again, you can let me know by either hitting that like button or leave a comment on the video. Let me know what you're liking and what you want to see less of. Speaking of wanting to see, college football season is right around the corner. And as I said, next week at this time, I'm going to be in Las Vegas for the Big Ten Media Days. And word is starting to get out. And I'm not the only one here at Locked On Illini who's starting to get excited about college football. There's experts out there who are migrating their conversations to college football. Obviously, this week it's the SEC Media Days. And so there was a couple of comments that stood out to me, one by Dan Orlovsky and one by Spencer McLaughlin. Dan Orlovsky, of course, is from, I believe he's on ESPN. And Spencer McLaughlin, my dear friend who hosts the Locked On College Football show. We'll start with Dan Orlovsky, who on ESPN on Mondays was asked, who's going to have more teams in the college football playoff? Is it going to be the SEC or is it going to be the Big Ten? Now, again, with the show being on ESPN, you fully expect them to be drinking that SEC Gatorade. But Dan had something very interesting to say. He said that there's 5 teams from the Big Ten that I feel very confidently in making it. Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Illinois, and the 5th team is probably going to be Indiana or Michigan. Spencer McLaughlin last week released his rankings, and he had Illinois at the number 4 spot in the Big Ten Conference. Pretty much exactly what Dan was discussing. And when you think about the Big Ten Conference, you expect to have at least 4 members in that college football playoff. So now we're starting to entertain the idea that, hey, this Illinois being in the college football playoff, it might just be something that we can aspire to. This might actually be a feasible goal. I mean, I'm shocked, again, with the ESPN aspect of it, just because they seem to want to downgrade the Big Ten as much as they can because they have their cash cow in the SEC. But Dan listed Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, 3 no-brainers, right? I mean, you're talking about 3 teams that could legit be top 7 teams by the end of the season. So those are no-brainers. But at 4, he could have picked Michigan or everyone's darling from last year, Indiana. A lot of people are talking about USC could be actually pretty good this year. But no, he picked Illinois as his 4 out of 5. Like, right, the 4th he wasn't worried about. It was the 5th one that he wasn't sure about. He said it could be Indiana or Michigan. That means he's locked in on Illinois. Spencer, same thing. He has Illinois at number 4. Guys, I can't say this enough. I don't think I've ever been more excited about a college football season than the one that's going to kick off just later next month against Western Illinois, August 29th, I believe. By the way, it's my goal to hit 4,000 subs on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't already, again, make sure you hit that sub button and send it to your friends so we can help me reach my goal. This has all the potential to be a very special season. It's a very veteran team. We saw what this team was capable of doing last year as being one of the younger Power 4 teams in all of the nation. And next year, well, we're returning a majority of that team. Anywhere from 16 to 18 starters are going to be returning next year. And when you think about a young team last year winning 10 games after their bowl win, and now having an expectations of this year with a win total at 8.5, according to FanDuel, is this what it feels like to be a legitimate college football program? This is what Bret Bielema has been building his plans for the last 4 years that he's been in Champaign. I feel like I want to pinch myself sometimes. I have a younger cousin who I met over the weekend who's going to the University of Illinois. They've already purchased the season tickets for football and basketball as well. And I try to sit there and tell them, hey, look, enjoy this. It hasn't always been this way. We are so incredibly lucky to have Bret Bielema and Brad Underwood in charge of our programs. There's a segment I'm going to talk about later on this week where I think it was Carson Gowdy talked about Illinois, when you combine football and basketball, has the second most wins this decade. Incredible. And more importantly, on the football side, okay, historically, we've always been pretty solid when it comes to basketball, but imagine going into every college football season moving forward and not just hoping and praying to hit 6 wins to make it to a bowl game. What Bret Bielema is building here is sustainable. The wins are increasing, and the future talent is being upgraded. We're seeing with the recruiting rankings, and obviously this weekend we got Jacob Eberhardt, who I talked about on Monday's episode. The recruiting, I believe we're at number 22 in the country right now. This all leads to why I think next season could be one of the most important seasons of many of our lifetimes. Okay, I've got a lot of people commenting on my shows talking about how they're basketball fans who are now just starting to pay attention to what's going on the football side because of the amazing job that Bret Bielema and company are doing. But now that Bret Bielema has been raising expectations by himself, by the way, last year he was on Twitter, he was vouching for Illinois, trying to get us into the college football playoff, and the national media has noticed to the point now where no one really considers Illinois a sleeper team. People are considering Illinois a team that has an opportunity to go to the college football playoff. And with that comes expectations. This year is an important one because of what we discussed earlier. It is so veteran heavy. Next year, I think we're replacing 20 plus seniors on next year's team. It's going to be a brand new team. A lot of the players that you're going to see on next year's roster aren't on the team this year and aren't recruits. I think it's going to be very transfer heavy next season. And what kind of transfers is Illinois going to be able to grab? I think it's going to depend on this year. Dan Orlovsky, Spencer McLaughlin, those type of talents out there are telling you that the national media is giving Illinois a chance. They're giving Illinois the opportunity to prove that they belong in this sort of conversation. If Illinois goes out there and wins 8, 9, 10 games this year, then we'll absolutely be given the benefit of the doubt next season. And with that sort of momentum, Illinois, who already is fighting for a top 25 class when it comes to recruiting, might be able to poach some of the recruits who, unfortunately, for whatever reason, have decided to commit elsewhere. Look, we got Grant Bierman from Purdue after Ryan Walters was fired. We do know that Bret Bielema is very good at building relationships. Every single guy that seems to commit to the Illini preaches how that family motto rings true when it comes to Illinois football. And so winning 8, 9, 10 games, having a top 25 recruiting class, selling out practically every single game, which I think Illinois absolutely will be able to do this season. I mean, for the most part, season tickets are already gone. Now it's all about keeping up that momentum, especially in the first half of the season, which is also something I'm going to talk about in a future episode. It's going to be key. Indiana, Duke, those type of games are going to be absolutely vital in order to maintain that positive momentum, because the back half of the schedule tends to get a little bit easier. But what happens if Illinois can't sustain that momentum? Then I think we might be in trouble. Again, next year's team, we're going to be reloading. We need to prove that Illinois isn't the Illinois of the past, the one that Bret Bielema is trying to get the audience, us, fans, to stop thinking about. He understands that's history, but that's not current. That's not now. That's not what we necessarily need to look like in the future. If Illinois falters out of the gate, and I'll be honest, I'm a little less optimistic than I was earlier on in the summer. Hopefully, I reserve the right to change my mind as this season gets closer. If we falter out of the gates and we only win 6 games, and yeah, I can't believe I'm saying that winning 6 games would be a disappointment, or maybe even 7 games. You have a disappointing season this year, and you're not going to get that benefit of the doubt next season. It's going to be looked at as a fluke, as Illinois has been doing. Look, we win 8 games and the next year we win 5, right? Last year we win 10. We need to follow that up with 8, 9, 10 wins. If we don't, then again, the following year, all this Bret Bielema chirping that he does on social media, which, by the way, I absolutely agree with. I love that he does it. He stands up for the program, and his work is being validated. It's being noticed. Now Illinois is being involved in the conversations for college football playoff spots. But if Illinois falters this football season, again, I think it's going to be a "we told you so" from all the naysayers, from all the haters. When Bret was hired, we've always talked about our goal at Illinois is to be what Bret Bielema had built at Wisconsin in his previous tenure in the Big Ten Conference, or what Kirk Ferentz has at Iowa. Win a solid 8 games every year, and then every now and then flirt with 9, flirt with 10, flirt with playing a very good bowl game. Last year, Illinois was one of the best stories in all of college football. Nobody expected them to win 10 games. And that's not going to be the case this year. Things have changed, and now Illinois is expected to have a burden of expectations that they need to live up to. And you know what? I kind of like this feeling, but it's on Bret and the staff to make sure that we maintain this moving forward. This season, more than any other in my entire history of being a college football fan, gives Illinois the opportunity to essentially say that when ESPN says that Illinois should be a college football playoff contender, it shouldn't be newsworthy. It shouldn't be something I need to discuss in a segment of the show. It should be the expectation. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. For me, what I love about Game Time is the price you see is the price that you're going to pay. That's right. There are no hidden fees. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And welcome back. Speaking of college football season being right around the corner, you don't need any more proof than when the college football preview magazines start coming out. I've got the Phil Steele 2025 magazine in my hands right now. I went over it over the past couple of weeks. There's a couple of notes I took about things I like, things I don't like. I'm going to be talking about the Phil Steele magazine. There's the Pick Six Preview magazine, which I also enjoy. I'll be discussing that just to get other experts' opinions on Illinois, right? Again, we live in kind of a bubble being Illini fans. We want to believe what we want to believe, but it's nice to see what other people who have been in the industry for as long as they have think of the players on the Illini. Today, I figure we'd start off with Phil Steele's 2025 preseason Big Ten team, of which there are a few Illini that show up. And again, for those of you who are converting over from the basketball side, it's a way for you guys to get to know which names to start paying attention to when it comes to this football team next year, which we're all hoping is going to be a good one. We'll start with the first team, and there's going to be 2 Illini. And I'll give you a second to try to guess who it might be. First, of course, is going to be Gabe Yakis. Gabe is going to be playing at the end, and he's a guy who spurned the NFL, if we're being very honest. It was with conversations that he had with Jershawn Newton and other former Illini who basically told him to entrust the coaching staff to develop him to become a higher NFL draft pick next season. And so Gabe coming back isn't a big surprise. Again, whether you count him as a defensive end or a linebacker, I'm sure he's going to play a mix of both. Whatever position he does play, he's going to be one of the better ones in the entire Big Ten Conference. And quite honestly, one of the better ones in the entire nation, regardless of what conference we're talking. Another guy for the first team is, I'll give you a second to figure it out, is Xavier Scott. Xavier's one of those intriguing players who, I'll be honest, I didn't have very high expectations for when we got him. I thought he'd be a nice rotational piece, just a good solid eval, but he turned out to be much more than that. He ended up being one of the best cornerbacks in the Big Ten Conference last year, and I think he's going to be, him along with Matthew Bailey, the leaders of that secondary this season. Xavier Scott has the opportunity to follow in Devin Witherspoon's steps, in Kirby Joseph's steps, in Sidney Brown's steps. Look, Illinois is becoming DBU when it comes to the NFL draft, and I think Xavier Scott has the opportunity to be the next guy in that lineage next year. I think with a really good season, he would absolutely see himself being taken in the third round, or who knows, maybe as high as the second round. So Yakis and Xavier Scott being in those top, in that first team does not surprise me at all. In the second team, what I really like to see is Luke Altmire at quarterback. Now, obviously, Phil had Drew Aller as the first team quarterback. I think that's kind of somewhat Drew is kind of the household name when it comes to college football quarterbacks, and a guy who's probably going to be taken very high in the NFL draft this upcoming season. But Luke Altmire, after the offseason where we've just had, where like, hey, is he going to stay or not? First, we were worried about whether Luke himself was going to enter the NFL draft. He decided he wanted to be in Champaign. And then came the whispers from Tennessee Volunteers insiders, and I do the air quotes for that for those of you listening on audio, that Luke Altmire was going to be a Tennessee Volunteer, that he was offered a substantial amount of money to go back south. He grew up in SEC country, and you would think it would be hard to turn down a historic, prestigious program like the Tennessee Volunteers. But that's exactly what Luke Altmire did. And again, he vouches for Bret Bielema. You can tell the relationship that he has with Barry Lundy Jr. means a lot to him, means a lot to that family. And they've entrusted Bret and the staff to not only put together a good offensive line in front of him, which they have, they've essentially brought everybody back from last season, but to put the weapons around him. And again, they have. It's a team that's projected to win 9 games next season. And if we do end up doing that, it's going to be largely on the part of Luke Altmire. Also on the second team is Hank Beatty on the special teams as a punt returner. I mean, I would love to see that. Hank shows that explosive skill every now and then. And I do think that, I'll be honest, when I put together my own preseason conference rankings, for some reason I didn't put Hank in there. But Phil putting them on the second team, I think, is a huge badge of honor for Hank. And I really do hope that he's able to fulfill that. On the third team, we have linebacker Dylan Rossak, which I hope really does come through. I mean, that linebacker room last year at the beginning of the season, I called one of the weaker ones in the Big Ten Conference. And boy, oh boy, did that group shut me up. Look, I'm not claiming to always have the best takes, but that was an awful one, as that linebackers room ended up being one of the better ones. And a big reason that the Illini won 9 games in the regular season last year and 10. And Dylan, being the veteran in that room, I think absolutely has a chance to be one of the better names in the Big Ten Conference. And finally, for the fourth team, we have Matthew Bailey listed at safety. I'll be honest, I think he's being a little undervalued here. Him, and I'm a guy I'm going to talk about in a second. Look, I understand between Caleb Downs and Rod Moore that there's a lot of good safeties in the Big Ten Conference, but do not sleep on Matthew Bailey. I genuinely think he's one of the better talents on this Illini roster. I think he's one of the best talents in the Big Ten Conference as a whole. So I get that being on the fourth team is actually pretty good in hindsight. But for me, if there's one guy who I want to put a little level higher, it's going to be Matthew Bailey. I really think that he's going to have a monster of a season. And he's going to be the big reason if Illinois is successful this season. Also, we have Keelan Crimmins, the new punter that we got. He's listed on the fourth team as well. So who's not on this list, who I think absolutely could be? The first name that jumps out to me is Kaden Fagen. Now, again, Kaden needs to stay healthy, right? That's the only thing. We see he's a running back that looks like a linebacker, the way he plows through people. I think him and Aiden Lawfrey in the backfield is just going to be such an asset for Luke Altmire this upcoming season. I think if Kaden can finally just stay healthy for a full season, He's absolutely a running back that could get 1,000 yards. And I'm saying that knowing that Bret Bielema is going to be sharing the rock in the backfield between Kaden, between Lofrey, between Khalil Valentine, who I'm also huge on, and who I think by the end of his career is going to be showing up on these preseason all Big Ten lists. But Kaden, I think, is kind of an X factor. I feel bad. I think he's kind of been forgotten about because of him experiencing season-ending injuries the past 2 seasons. But if Kaden can stay healthy, I legitimately think that he could be one of the household names in the Big Ten Conference. Because for the last couple of seasons, every time during a post game, I'd always reach out to someone covering the other team for thoughts on what they saw from the Illini. One of the messages I was consistently get is, who is that huge back, Kaden Fagen? He just jumps out at you. And so with him, it's all about being able to stay healthy. I want to hear your thoughts. Is there someone else that you think should have been on this list? What are your thoughts on Kaden? Do you think, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's Aiden Lofrey who deserves to be mentioned in this list? I just think when you think of a Bret Bielema team, you think of running backs. And obviously it was a few years ago where he had that stable of Wisconsin Badgers running backs. And I think he's kind of building something similar at Illinois. Maybe that's the reason that no one's on the list. But I do think that Kaden has the highest ceiling. Let me know your thoughts. And welcome back to Locked On Illini. If you haven't already, make sure you've hit that like button. And also, if you're looking to have conversations with fellow Illini fans spread all across the country, over 300 of us, make sure you click on the link in the description of our Discord. Today, we talked about the possibility of bringing the Chief back as the official mascot of the University of Illinois. And we also talked about the alma mater and the Kingfisher, which, by the way, I got in trouble for over the weekend. I'm going to talk about that in a fun episode for Friday's episode. I got some beef because I took a picture with the Kingfisher, but I have some thoughts on that. We'll discuss that later on this week. I did want to say happy 33rd birthday to Rayvonte Rice, former Illini men's basketball player who played for the Guangdong Southern Tigers of the Chinese Basketball Association. So happy birthday to Rayvonte. Before I end the show today, I did have to bring up what I think is a huge story for Illini fans and people who consume Illini content. On Monday morning, Derek Piper announced that he was leaving the Illini Inquirer and going to be doing a career shift. And I just want to say that Derek Piper, even before I got into the content game, I always considered Derek one of the biggest, if not the biggest, quote unquote, insiders when it comes to Illini basketball. And he's someone that between him, Jeremy, and Joey Wagner, I talk about them all the time on the show. I think the Illini Inquirer is the best in the business when it comes to premium content for the Illini. And to see Derek, and the reasonings that he had behind making this career change, I related to a lot, in fact. I believe he's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I think the idea of, having this career track, having this career choice means that you're away from family a lot of weekends. You're constantly on call. Again, I experience it myself, but on a smaller scale. Derek is making trips to Madison Square Garden, to New York City, to here and there to cover these basketball games. I can understand how it can take a toll on a family, a young family. You have to have a very understanding significant other. I'm very fortunate I do, and it sounds like Derek also has one. But sometimes you just get to a point in your life where you have to decide what's ultimately the most important. And having a dream job is fantastic, and a lot of people would love to have it, but it's not as important as your family and wanting to be able to be there for the key moments of your kids growing up. And so I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision for Derek. I'm sure Jeremy Warner is going to do a fantastic job hiring his replacement. Again, they do such a good job at the Inquirer. But I did want to give a second to Derek and give him his props because, again, he's a guy who is a foundational piece when it comes to Illini media, especially on the basketball side. I believe Derek said that he's going to be covering Peach Jam this year, and that will be the conclusion of his 12-year media career and the 9 years he's been with the Illini Inquirer. So again, it's a big loss for the Illini community, but if you haven't already, make sure you give a proper thank you to Derek on the social medias and just wish him well. If Derek ever ends up watching this, I wish him well in whatever he decides to do in the future. Also, Illinois wrestling coach Mike Pota announced the addition of Eric Schultz to his staff as an assistant coach on Monday. Mike said, "We're extremely excited to add Eric to our coaching staff. I've known Eric for a long time and I've always admired his passion and love for the sport of wrestling. He was a multi-time All-American for Nebraska, but he's originally from Illinois and is deeply respected throughout the state. His accomplishments speak for themselves, but what excites me the most is how committed he is to help our guys reach the same level of success. He's going to be an enormous asset to our program." Eric said, "I am incredibly honored to be joining the University of Illinois wrestling program. I look forward to contributing to the development of these young men and helping build on the program's proud tradition under Coach Pota." That's going to just about wrap it up for this edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you so much for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes of the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, action-packed all week long. Next week, I'm going to be at Media Days. If you have a question that you want me to ask one of the players or one of the head coaches, let me know in the comments. And if I can have enough time, I'll absolutely do just that next week in Las Vegas. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.